Not too shabby.
You know, every time I watch your character go across that obstacle course with those frozen feet, I'm so jealous.
It's so easy, dude. What's the problem?
I don't know if easy is the word I'd use for that.
That was so much fun watching you just go flying off the edge. I was realizing that was pretty mean of me. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. I forgive you. We're still friends.
Okay, good. You see that? What a special moment here on the live stream, folks. Hey, everybody. I'm Cleverlike. Thanks for joining us. I'm here joined by my buddy and creative director, Gatlin Shadow. What's going on, Gatlin?
Not much. Just hanging out and watching all the awesome happen, and excited to see this kind of come back around. This is really cool.
Yeah. So this hour of code we created back in the day, collaborated with Steve Isaacs. We created 5 hour of code activities in Fortnite Creative. These activities are super awesome for creating an engaging environment for learning computer science themes. And today, we're going to be learning about something that we thought was kind of a cool idea, which is collision detection. And so it's like not something that's usually like in your normal hour of code activity, but we think it's kind of an important thing to learn, and it contributes a lot to your gameplay, to your strategies, and also has some good connections to math and other things like that to help you understand more deeply the kind of projects you're working on. So how's that sound?
I mean, I'm in. Like, I'm taking notes. I'm getting my notepads ready over here.
He's on board. He's on board, folks.
For those of us that are taking notes,
look over here.
This guy right here.
This guy is taking notes. Yeah, who's got 2 thumbs and is taking notes?
This guy.
All right, cool. So I am going to kind of get us started with kind of going over the overview of the activity, the lesson plan, and then we'll talk about the lesson plan. Then we'll step through the activity. So let's go ahead and check that out. I'm going to share my screen here.
Oh, I'll start dropping links. Mm-hmm. Something about taking notes, making notes. There we go.
We'll share audio as well. And there we go. All right. So here we are in lovely Fortnite. We're going to kind of pause that for a second. I'm going to bring this over here. So I don't know what links are being thrown out there, but we've got on our website, on the Cleverlike website, we have our Fortnite hour of code activities all kind of listed here in a row. And this is the kind of order we'll be going through for the remainder of these activities. And we have today we're doing the Build an Obstacle course. So you can try this hour of code activity, which takes you to this link on the Epic website. So the Unreal Engine learning website. So we've got this Building an Obstacle course, collision detection triggers and events in Fortnite Creative. So this is going to be our little overview and talking about what students are going to learn. They're going to not only learn just about collision detection, but also about events and the concept of event-driven programming. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about that. You can see over here, all of these activities include a lesson plan, which is like, what the teachers need in order to be prepared. And then we have a student guide, which is a step-by-step guide for students. And then we have a step-by-step guide for teachers, which has some little call-outs that help the teachers know kind of what to expect while they're working on this. So let's have a quick look at the lesson plan. So the lesson plan has some of the important, it's got the links to the guides, some author contact info, and then we're talking about what the lesson is, some of the essential questions, and then using, it does have a link to another course that we had created previously, which is Teaching with Fortnite Creative, which is helps teachers kind of get familiar with what is Fortnite Creative and how could it be useful in the classroom. So if you don't know about that one, you could check out that Teaching with Fortnite Creative, which is should also be a link from our website as well. As if you go to our website, you could see all the latest projects we've worked on and link to where they go to on the Epic website. So we've got we start talking about events and collisions. So basically, like in this case, it's setting up a conditional statement. If these two things collide, then do this action, and that's kind of what collision detection is about in a lot of ways. And so in this example here, it's showing, which is kind of cool when you think about it. So you have like a box around this circle, and so the box around the circle is like a nice, easy rectangle to calculate. Right, and so you have two boxes around each of the circles, and if the boxes overlap, you could see that the image, like if these were Photoshop images and they were rectangular, you would see that those images would overlap at that point where the corners are overlapping. But if those corners were transparent and the objects were not quite there yet, it'd be annoying if they showed as colliding with each other. So here you could see in the example B, you could see that the images have already overlapped, but the actual circles is what you want to check the overlap for. And so that's the important thing when it comes to collision detection, is you really want to kind of get those objects to detect the collision or the overlap instead of just kind of like the volume or the box that they fit in. And the cool lesson there is that, first of all, there's a lot of math that's involved in doing that in three-dimensional space. And if you're familiar with video games and the way video games use hitboxes, I'm thinking of like Rocket League. Depending on where you hit the ball with your car, you get a different level of power. You could do a flip reset by hitting the bottom of your car against the ball, things like that. So all of those things are collision detection that's happening in the game. And, so it becomes pretty important to the player. But the other side of the coin is if you're mad at the hitbox because it's too basic or it's too big, the problem there is that if you make it like super precise to every single detail and every single pixel, then the math that would be involved in calculating those collisions would be overwhelming and then creates the enemy of all, lag. So all of that computational resources would be used in trying to detect the collisions. Meanwhile, your game would be laggy. If you had too many players doing all that math, it'd be a problem. So there's a balance. And so that's a good lesson to learn as well in trying to find the balance. And so we have this obstacle course as kind of like our end goal of this class. And so there's a rubric here for the teachers and also some of the standards mapping on what standards this is going to hit and things like that. So that's for the teachers. And now for the students, we have this activity guide here, which is going to walk you through some of the details here. So I'm walking through the teacher guide, and the student guide is basically just going to be missing some of the call outs that are designed specifically for the teachers. So so a couple of things that are important, like the 3D printing, like you talk about the application of collisions and things like that. And you think of like 3D printing. I don't know if you've ever taught 3D printing, but a lot of first timers, when they're 3D printing, they're building, they're putting objects together on a 2-dimensional screen. They're building a 3-dimensional object. And what's super important there is basically how those objects connect to each other. And knowing how they connect to each other is super important because, when you go to print it, if they're not connected to each other, then you can't just...
You get floaters.
Yeah, you can have floaters. And if you do have floaters, 3D printing, could accommodate for that, which just creates an awful mess by building essentially the base all the way up to your floating piece. But that's not great. So what you want to do when you're 3D printing, it's super important to make sure all of your objects are connected to each other or colliding with each other, so that they'll 3D print as kind of like one solid object. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing would be like self-driving vehicles. So think about that. And we got a robotics learning kit as well, where you get to actually create self-driving vehicles in Unreal Engine. But, self-driving vehicles are doing these kind of calculations. They're trying to, they're an object and there's other objects out there, and they're calculating whether or not they're going to collide with those. And they're actually trying to do some, predictive measures to try to avoid things, detect things, and things like that. So, so collision in a video game is important, but when you start using these concepts for physical things, that's super important as well. So there's some real application for this kind of stuff too. Same with robotics automation. When you have automated projects going on, you're going to want to have that same level of awareness of your 3-dimensional space and ability to detect collisions or the possibility of collisions, whether you're assembling a piece or trying to keep people safe that are around those objects. The other cool thing about this lesson is it teaches you about event-driven programming. So a lot of people might think of like code as like, I'm going to start at the beginning and I'm going to go through step by step to the end. And so that would be like this kind of traditional linear programming. But when you get to the concept of event-driven programming is kind of just sitting there waiting for something to happen so it could respond to it. So you might have heard of like responsive design and event-driven design, things like that, where you have basically built into all of your objects in the world, which are a lot of them are triggered by a collision being detected. So when the player clicks this button, which is potentially a collision, then do this action. So that that button is just sitting there waiting to trigger some code behind it. And you can build all kinds of things like that in Fortnite Creative as well, using what is known as channels. So a lot of the devices will communicate to each other through some form of connection so that this device can tell the next device to activate and run its code. And we'll be going through some of that as well today. So we're going to basically create ourselves a blank island, and we're going to put all the pieces in place so we can go ahead and get started in building our collision detection here. So what I'm going to do is I am in creative mode. You should know how to get to creative mode, which is, let's see, let's go back to return to lobby. I say you should know how to do it, but then I want to show you. So I'll show you from the beginning. So when you're in the lobby here, which is where all your players are, where your player would be standing, and if anyone joined your party, they'd be standing on these pads as well. You can look over in this bottom right above the play button, and this will tell you which button or which game mode you're going to play when you hit the play button. So if it does not say creative already, you could click on that above the play button, and then one of the things you could do is click on one of the quicker ways to get to it is just by clicking the create option up top here, and then click create here, and that'll change you to creative. So when you press play, it'll launch you into creative mode. Okay. And now we're going to get into that. So we're going to be heading into the hub. And the hub is kind of like your launching point into creative mode. So you can access, you can see here, this hub, first of all, was created by the community. And every week they place a new hub for people to see. And there's a little adventure in this one, finding gems and kind of making your way up to the top of the tower. I used the new slide feature to slide all the way down the stairs. I felt like Ace Ventura.
Oh, nice.
Isn't this incredible? It's going to be some kind of a record.
I'm just using all the old things and just jumping off and flying.
Yep. No, this slide was pretty fun down the stairs, but I stopped right at the last step. Didn't make it all the way down. No, just kidding. So this hub, created by the community, featured, is a great way to get yourself known and also to give credit to the friends that have helped you kind of achieve what you've gotten to. So you can see the special thanks, the huge list of people that have supported this person in their journey to kind of creating the hub. And so you can see Chocolate Chip GR is the person that created this particular hub. And these sculptures here, I think the artist created the sculptures, has a call out in there as well. This is one of the purple gems back here.
Oh, spoiler. Did you find all of them? Man, one of them took me like 20 minutes to find. Brutal.
Yeah, here's the...
Yeah, and if you don't see this hub, like, don't worry. These things change like every week. I don't know if Cleverlike had mentioned that, but yeah, like it's a thing. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
SMG. So, all right. So that's the creative hub. I think I always point out this is one thing to aspire to. Fortnite creative mode, you can actually aim to create a hub that gets submitted and gets featured. That would be a great piece of material for your portfolio if you end up wanting to be a creative person. Mm-hmm. So we have our golden rift over here. You can see it's got a beacon up through the sky to the sky. You'll see it off towards your right when you first spawn in, but it should be in that main center area. And you could go up before running into this. This will teleport you if you run into that. Before running into that, we're going to go up to this console, and here is where you could create a new island. And then what we're using is this XL grid island, which is just a big flat grid. So you can select that and then type your island name. And you can see I've done that already here. I've got obstacle course hour of code. And then once that's ready to jump into, we just hop in. And you get the cool skydiving. That's what you do first time in. Press W to go forward. And head on down. You can see I kind of built a little track. So Gatlin wants to join us. And Gatlin will be popping in from the sky here momentarily. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to do if we're looking at our lesson, we're going to talk about first of all bringing in a player spawn pad, and we do in the documentation, depending on which version you have, you might see spawn device, you might see a spawn pad. Either way, this is going to be a thing that starts the player in the game at a specific location that you specify. So the trick there is you, instead of having people fly in all the time, you can have them pop in and be directly into the game. So what I'm going to do is go into my creative menu. And so one of the things you always want to know in creative is your hotkey bindings and things like that. And so mine will probably be different from yours because I have a slightly different setup, and this could be a good lesson here. So if you look at inventory on the left-hand side, what does yours say for inventory, Gatlin? Does it say tab?
Yes, it does say tab on mine. Yes.
Okay. And I set mine to V. So I think I have tab set to like the map or something like that. So you could see over there on that left-hand side, it says V for inventory. Yours might say tab. Press that key. That's what brings up that menu. And you can see here when you bring up your inventory, it might be in the default, the play menu, but you can see up top here, you have my island, creative, and play. And so we're going to go into the creative menu for now for most of these activities. And you can see you've got next tab down, you've got prefabs, galleries, devices, weapons, consumables, and chest. So in this case, we're going to go into the devices. Now, there's lots and lots of really cool devices, and don't be overwhelmed by all of them, because as you need them, you'll find them and be able to track them down. So in this case, we can click on the player to kind of narrow down the view to just player-related things, and you can see here all the way up at the top is our player spawn pad. And you can see here, okay, that's the team setting. So that's good. So the spawn pad is nice because now it's more like a prop. You could place it pretty much anywhere, and you could face it anywhere. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to do place now. And so in this case, you could see I've got the little shadow silhouette of the player. And if I look at the rotate menu, over on my left-hand side, you can see the rotation axis is the yaw, which is the vertical axis, which is good. It'll spin around kind of staying flat. And if I hit R and E, that's what rotates it clockwise and counterclockwise. So you can see how this is rotating. Now you can see which way the player is facing. So if I want to place them kind of away from me towards that, I can go ahead and place that. And then I could put down another one. If you want, you could put down a few. And if you put down a few this way, if you have multiple players join in, they'll pick a spawn pad, and they'll show up here instead of skydiving from the sky, and they'll be facing in the direction the spawn pad is facing. Okay, so that's how that works. There's lots of customization options for it, but usually by default, you can just place it, and then your new players will get added in there. So we're not going to do any sophisticated gaming activities in order to manage that. So first thing we want to do is talk about some of the traps. When we're talking about collision detection and creating an obstacle course, we're going to talk about some of the different traps. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to create some simple corridors here that you can kind of use for doing your test builds. So now, if I look over on my bottom right-hand side of my screen, I could see the letter X is associated to the floor piece. So if I press X, you could see it gives me a floor building piece. And I could left-click to place it, move forward, left-click again, move forward, left-click again. And then you can see I still have the floor piece equipped. I can go ahead and build, let's go ahead and build another floor here. You can build sideways. If you want to do the old grapevine side shuffle. I'm a big time dancer. I mean,
wow, I learned something new today. All right.
There may or may not be, be pictures out there of me in a tutu. You never know. Don't bother looking. Don't bother looking. So, yeah.
Links in the description.
I mean, it could be an SNL Saturday Night Live skit for all you know, but we'll see. So one of the things I could do to build walls is I could hit Z, or I could also use my scroll wheel on the mouse. So if I use the scroll wheel, you'll see it rotates through the different builds, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to use that in this case. I could have also used Z. And I'm going to place those walls. Now, if you're real quick, you can hold down the left mouse button if you know that your build's going to go in the right place. It'll build immediately as soon as there's an available spot. So we're building with in-game materials in this case. And we built some simple basic walls. And this is kind of like, if you know any programmers in your life, a lot of programmers will prototype, and you'll start off by kind of just proving how things work, and you don't overly decorate the things when you're kind of proving and prototyping. And so what you want to make sure to do is, kind of get to the point where you're confident that functions the way you want to, and then you could build it into kind of like the final plan. So I think this layered approach of kind of building proof of concepts kind of as separate pieces is a great process.
And real quick before you get going, you want to give me permissions? We'll cover that one too.
I guess so. Okay, so that's like
I'm so finding that picture of you in a tutu.
Somebody did good luck. Somebody did like a tweet for like Fortnite creative people. Like, what is the most common thing that you say to each other? And that's one of them. Can you give me permissions, please? That's the thing. So to get permission, so what I do is I'm going into my inventory, pressing V or Tab for you, and then I'm going to go into my island, and then you can go into permissions. You can see all the people that are in your island, and the cool thing is by default, people come in like with play permissions, so they can't mess around with your stuff, and it's up to you to give them edit permissions. And that's basically it. Edit and copy or play. Those are the two levels of permission. So if you give somebody edit and copy, then they immediately have the ability to kind of mess around with your world. So just make sure you have some rules laid down if you're collaborating with friends. Now we're going to start with going through the exercise. We're going to go through and talk about some of the trap devices, and we're going to talk about the damage trap, the poison dart trap, and then the damage rails. And that's what these 3 builds are going to be. And when we do that, we're going to explore some of the different aspects of collision when we do those. So I'm going to go into my inventory, creative inventory, go into devices, and then I could uncheck player. And let's see if I click on damage, what we have here. So we have our damage trap. I'm going to equip that. Now, these are kind of old school in a sense that this little icon here is actually like a bear trap. That's what makes them qualify as trap devices, and it also kind of limits their positioning. They can't be rotated quite like you would with a prop, so they have to be kind of placed on grid and locked into place that way. So you do have a little bit of limitations on how trap devices can be placed. So we will kind of deal with that, but I'll show you some tricks related to that. So we're going to then click on the poison dart and then also say equip. You can see it's kind of showing up in my traps category down here. And then we have the half damage rail and the full damage rail. So I could equip the half damage rail and equip the full damage rail. I think we just equipped the full damage rail in the documentation. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and place some of these. So you could see down on my lower right hand side, the letter Y for me maps to my different trap devices. So if I press Y, and then if I right click my mouse, it'll cycle through the things that have been loaded into that one singular slot, right? And so I've got this trap device, damage trap. You could place it on the floor. You could also place it on the wall. So let's place this one on the floor. And there it is. Set and ready to go. It works. It works. It bit me. I got bit by the trap. Okay, I'm gonna go pick up my stuff here. Oh gosh. You know how traps work. You know that they that's the cool thing about traps is that they have a collision box for triggering the trap, and they have a collision box for actually getting killed by the trap. So you can actually go and trigger the trap by kind of walking into the edge, but you have kind of like a protected area, and it doesn't get activated until it gets reset. So once it's triggered, there's a safety time you have to kind of run along it where collision is deactivated. The death or damage collision is deactivated. And once it's reset, the detection for whether the player is overlapping with it reset, and you can go ahead and get yourself wrecked again when you do that. So we're learning how this trap device works. Now let's go place another one. The poison dart is a different one. So if we place that one there, see that on the wall. Let's kind of walk through. Now we have some damage. It shot some poison darts at us, and we're taking some ongoing damage as a result of that, down to 20. A little bit scary. So check this out on this one. If I try to run through, it gets me because it's shooting the darts the full distance. Let's do something similar with damage trap here. Pull that up. Hello, sorry guys, picking up my things. Ooh, I know you, poison dart trap. You real spicy. All right, so we gotta have Y, and then I'm gonna pick the damage trap. I'm gonna put it on wall. And this one, watch what happens here. You can't trigger it when you're over here like you could with the poison dart trap. So you see how the spikes don't quite reach all the way across. So obviously when you're on the floor, they'll shoot up in the air to get you when you're standing on it. But if you're coming in from the side, woohoo, close one. So there's a little bit about how that works and how the collision for that kind of causes the damage for the player. And then we're going to do the damage rails next. And so do the full damage rail. Now we'll look at how the damage rail kind of locks into, remember it's a trap, so it's locking to the grid, and you can see how it's lining up with the lines on the grid. And it's jumping one by one because it doesn't have anything smoother that I can do because it has to be on the world tile. And so this is how this guy works. You could jump over it. Jump over it if you collide with it. So if your player mesh and this mesh collide, you'll get knocked back and get 5 damage. So there's how that works. 5 damage and some knockback. And so one of the cool things we can do with this one, let's go ahead and kind of scooch forward here. Yeah. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is our building tool having some more creativity with these pieces. So we're going to talk about turning these trap pieces into prop pieces, especially these traps, which are really cool. So let me build some floors. I'm going to put a nice little doorway in here. There we go. And I'm going to pull up my phone device. And for you, it might be kind of like where your tilde key is in the top left, right below your escape. One of the things I've kind of set it to is my mouse wheel click. That's kind of one of the nice quick things that I've set for making it easier for me. And you can customize your keybinds as well. So once I bring up my phone device, I have some different options there. So we're going to go, you can see down at the bottom of the left-hand side there, you can see options is the letter B. So I press B. And you could say here, let's see. Okay, we have building as prop. And so normally building as prop could be turned off for you, but if you have it turned on, that means it's going to take this building piece and allow us to treat it like a prop. So watch when I copy this. You can see my phone is highlighting it in blue, which means it's basically selected. So if I want to interact with it now, I could left click to copy it. So now it's copied. So now you see it's kind of not stuck on that world grid anymore, but it's still kind of snapping. It's still kind of jumping. Because if you look over on the left, you can see my grid snap is 2. So if I press V, half of a W. Half W. Let's call V a half W.
I appreciate that.
New things, innovation. So, yeah, we've got the grid snap to 1 now, and you can see like when it's set to 1, it jumps 1 full tile, but it's actually in the center of the world tile. So that's kind of a tricky deal. Oh boy, Gatlin, you're almost overlapping us over here. Well, we're gonna have to move.
Mind your space. My bad.
Like, mind your space, sir. So that's the grid snap, and you could set that. You could see like if I set that to off now look, as I rotate around, I have free movement for this thing, so I can actually set this thing on an interesting angle if I want to. Right? And I could also change its size. So one of the cool things here is like, so if you look at the left-hand side, it says rotation reset is to hold down tab. But more importantly, like down towards the bottom, you can see the right click and hold will toggle to resize. So I'm going to right click hold. And now you could see I have activated my resize. And so now my R and E keys are assigned to grow and shrink. So if I press E, I could shrink that down. And you could also kind of go back to the rotation. So now I can have like a shrunken down version of it. Just kind of floating up a little bit, making find out the right way to place that. So now I've made smaller versions of it. You can also, if I go back to the rotation, you see how you have, as I press tab, it's showing you like what axis it's rotating on if you decide to rotate it. So if I go to this axis and then I press R or E, see that it's rotating it vertically, and so you can do something like that. Just stick it on the wall. So you can do a lot of creative things when you turn building elements into props, and I don't think you can do that with all of the trap items, but you can on this one, which makes it pretty cool. So it still kind of gives you the same knockback effect, whether it's small or big. You can see I could run around these and jump over this guy. Accidentally bump into it. There, oh, pinball. So there you go. So that's the collision and some of the things you can do with collision using these trap devices. Okay, so we're going to move forward to start talking about some of the effect tiles and see how these effect tiles will impact the player. So the cool thing here is we're talking, also along the lines of events where you have a certain contact or a certain collision triggering some form of action in response to it, right? So let's come up with a bunch of these things. So we have chiller. Go in here, go into devices, and let's see if we have. Trying to think of a good category for affecting the player. Ooh, that was fun. Okay, so this chiller is in movement, hazard, and trap. You can see down on the lower right, these boxes show the categories that it belongs to. So we could go to the movement category and see what we get there. So that's pretty cool. These are a lot of our movement options. So I could take this ice block and equip that. I could equip this chiller. I could equip the bouncer. And I could equip the speed boost and the movement modulator. There's lots of other stuff too. There's these pinball flippers, pinball bumper, these cool crash pads, the air vents that are configurable, which are super cool. So there's lots of things that you can do there, and you can see this. The Mutator Zone is another one that we will be getting into in these lessons. So let's go ahead and let's go back and see what we have here on this one. Remember, I'm right-clicking to cycle through my traps. And so this one is the ice block. You can see down on the bottom left, to the left of my purple pickaxe icon, it says ice block. So that's how I know which one is selected. So I can place that ice block there. Ooh, that looks real nice and cold. And this is the chiller. So I can place that. This is the bouncer. You can see kind of like the arrows are showing kind of like the direction of action that you'll get from it. So you could place these on walls as well. And then we have our speed boost. And then our movement modulator. Cool. So these objects have been placed, and we're going to prototype these and see what they do. And we're getting ideas for, how these respond and if they're configurable and what they do. So this is not configurable when we step on it. If we try to turn, we slide. See that? So if I stop running, I'll keep sliding on this. So what I'll do is I will hit Y and I'll place some more blocks. Right. So the ice block, if I'm running and I stop running, I'll slide across it and then I'll stop. And that's different from the chiller because watch what the chiller does. When I hit it, I now have ice blocks on my feet. So it doesn't matter what surface I'm on. My feet are slippery. It's hard to change direction. You can see the ice is starting to break. And eventually it breaks off your feet over a certain amount of time. So you can see there you've got this timed slipping on any device. And the bouncer is super cool when we interact with that one. Shoot this up. Also gives us anytime you have jump boost, you usually get like fall damage immunity during that time. And that applies to this as well. So you'll see we have kind of a glow when we hit it. That glow that we have associated with our player is kind of like our fall damage prevention. So that'll last typically until you hit the ground once. I'm not sure with the highest possible jump if it has also a timer on it, but that's the bouncer. So that could be useful for, remember, we're building an obstacle course. And so we have our little speed boost here. So when we hit that, it just kind of shoots us forward a few blocks. So if I look at kind of where I'll just run and then stop on it. Oh, speed boost is customizable. Look at that. I can press E while looking at it, and you can affect how strong the impulse is. And if I click on, there's only one setting, but these icons up here allow you to reveal the different types of options that are available. So I like to always click on the one with the 4 lines because that gives you all options. This one only has one option. So we're going to set it to high. We'll run onto it, and then we'll stop and then look back. So it shot us about 1.5 blocks. By running forward, look at that. It's like 3.5 blocks when we were jumping. Let's slide. 2.5 blocks. 2.5 blocks. Let's jump on it. A little over 3. Let's creep towards it. 2.5. Okay, so that's how that works. Now the cool thing is the movement modulator. If we hit, we can customize the settings on that one. And look at that one. That has all kinds of capabilities. So remember when I was talking about events and triggers and things like that? So this event is going to kind of, you interacting with this device is going to trigger some actions. So it's going to set your movement speed so you can make yourself run like super fast for 3 seconds after you come in contact with it. You could enable it in all phases, including the editing phase as well as the gameplay phase. Does it get reset? Is it visible or invisible? So do you want it to be a secret, or you want people to notice it and see it? You could also turn it on and off remotely through channels and activate it. Activate it whenever through a signal as well as through player contact. So let's contact this and see if we have super fast running speed. Yeah. And then we're back to slow. So if we try again fast. We have fast running speed for 3 seconds. So that could be a cool thing to use if we're building an obstacle course, like if you need to get past traps and other things like that. That could be a cool thing. Actually, let's see if we can build on this one. Similar deal, right? So let's see if we can escape this whole setup here by setting this guy to super fast. Okay, so now I'm going to do 3 seconds of super fast running to try to get past these traps. There we go. We made it. So that's a cool little trick that you can use for your obstacle course. All right, so those are the additional kind of player effect types of traps that exist. We'll walk you through those. And then last thing we're going to do is talk about some of the volumes and how we can affect those volumes using our channels. And so over here, we will go ahead and start a new thing here. I'm going to go into my inventory and I'm going to grab some different types of volumes. So we're going to talk about the barrier, the damage volume, and the mutator zone and the sequencer. So these are ones that we're going to bring into play here. So if I search for volume, let's see what we have for those. There's our damage volume. There's the mutator zone. There's the barrier. So I'm going to equip the barrier. I'm going to equip the damage. You can see when I say equip on these, it's putting them into a slot of my quick bar, which is available in your phone device. We could also just place now if we want to put it straight onto the ground. So we can go ahead and select that one. I will equip this one as well. And then the sequencer was the last object that we had available. I could find that also in triggers. So if I click on sequencer and equip that as well, you'll notice that is in the trap device category, so it shows up in my traps. So you have to remember kind of where these things show up, whether they're in your phone quick bar or in your traps slot. And now I can go ahead and press escape. And I want to go back to my phone, so you can toggle your phone. And in this case, I want to place a barrier. So if I press 1, you can see that I am off of grid snap, so I have full access to the rotation of this barrier. Now, if I turn grid snap back on, you can see now it's kind of snapped to 32 increments per tile. If I press it again, it's 16 increments per tile. One more time, it's 8 increments per tile, 4 increments per tile. So you can adjust your grid snap based on how rigid you want your barrier to conform to. So in this case, we'll go ahead and just kind of place it right on a tile. And you can see which way it's facing here. And what I want to do is change its width, and we'll change its height. And say OK. And so you can see here we have our barrier device set to a nice tall block. One of the cool things about the barrier device is that you could change its style. So check this out. You could change it to like a brick wall. And now you have like a free ginormous brick wall available to you. And we can default it on, and we could also set it to turn off by default. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that kind of remote event triggering. So we're going to set up a trigger device that will turn this barrier off when we get to it, like to a secret hidden trigger. So I'm going to disable when receiving from, let's say, channel 5. Okay. And so this barrier will be on by default, and we'll shut it off when you hit the trigger on channel 5. And I'm going to do that. Now we've got, let's see, zone shape, yeah. So I'm going to show you the trigger real quick, and then we'll go through and do we'll do one of the other zones. How are we doing on time? We got 10 minutes. Okay, cool. So we're going to pick up our phone. And actually, well, I haven't gotten the trigger yet. So let's go ahead and get a, actually, let's use a mutator zone. Sorry about that. And make things a little more fun here. So I'm going to go into my inventory, and we're going to go and get the mutator zone. Okay, the mutator zone is another cool thing. So we're going to place that. Right. So you have this box here, this zone. And what we can do is when the player you can do all kinds of cool things with the Mutator Zone, but you can obviously make it visible or invisible. You could also disable building or any kind of weapons while players are inside of that zone. You could change its size just like you could with the barrier, so you can make it larger or smaller, and you could have it affect other non-players. You know, the guards and other creatures that come into the game. You could have it impact them as well. So you can, let's see what else we have here. Gravity, you can override gravity. You could change the movement just like we did with the movement modulator. You could change how fast the player runs while they're inside this. Okay, and then on player starts emoting, transmit on, let's say transmits on 5. So now we set this volume up that when the player is in here and starts to dance, they'll send a signal on channel 5. And if you remember, the barrier was set to turn off when it picks up a signal on channel 5. So let's do a quick test on this one. Gatlin, are you okay if I run a quick test?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Sorry, go to my island and then start game. We're going to end up at our spawn pad, so I'm going to have to kind of sprint over to this location. You can tell by the giant wall. Okay, so you can see I'm in this device and nothing's happening. And if I pick an emote,
That's amazing.
Yeah, the wall is gone. So you can see that's what this volume detected, that we were inside the volume, and then it was listening for any kind of detecting any kind of activities that we were doing. When it detected that we did an emote, it sent a signal over, and the barrier wall shut itself off as a result. So you can create these different kinds of interactions through events as well, which is really cool. And that's how a lot of programs are made, when you put buttons and scroll bars and lists and radio buttons and all these different things you can click and slide and interact with. Oh boy. Get used to those shoes. Get used to those shoes. Get that practice. Get that practice. Okay, so we did those two volumes. I'm going to show you another cool one. Oops. I'm going to pick my. Oh, we're in the game. I'm going to end the game. We're going to end the game. We're going to go back to edit mode, and we'll be able to fly again. So we can head right on back over to where we were. Ooh. I don't know if you can hear the thunder rumbling. This is the. I've been in creative mode for a while, and you can see the storm actually moves in for the period of your entire, like, your server session, and will eventually die by the storm, which will kind of boot you out of the server, and you'll have to come in and start a new session. But all of your stuff is saved kind of as you're making it happen. So it's really just a method of making sure that players don't kind of sit around and wait, waste too much resources not being active. So that's basically what that is. It's like your TV going to sleep automatically, so that Epic doesn't have to pay for you to not be using the servers, which are free. Okay, so we have that's cool. We did the Mutator Zone. We did the barrier. The other thing that's cool is the damage one. I like this one because it allows you to kind of create a little bit of panic in the player. So we're going to go back to the inventory. We do have to go to creative, and we have to pick damage, I believe. Oh, I have text kind of in my search, so I'll select damage, and then I can pick the damage volume. That's a damage volume plate. You can also pick the damage volume prop, which is a little bit smarter. So I'm going to select place now on that one and put it down on the ground. Cool particle effect. It definitely tells you that this thing means business. And one of the things you could do is you could trigger like instant death to the player, or you could trigger kind of damage over time, and I kind of like that for it because it creates a little panic because you do this damage over time, and you put some traps nearby, and you'll get the player to kind of panic and do something. So you can make the damage real small, but the tick rate. Let's make it every 1 second to see how much panic that creates for us. You could also make it invisible so that players don't see it. They just head into it and they start to get the damage, which will show on the player. Or you can let the area be visible if you want to give them a little heads up. So on this one, what we can do is go ahead and I'm going to pick this up. That's the cool thing about this device. I can pick it up. Oh, I'm in the storm here. Yeah. Oh boy, we are in big trouble. I'm going to get rid of these spawn pads. Move this one over here. No! Talk about panic.
Here it comes.
It's coming to get you. Coming to get you. Player spawn pad placed now. Press start. Start the game. Gatlin's building something cool over there. We're gonna have to go check that out. So let's see. Oh, I'm in it. It's invisible right here, and you can see I'm taking damage. It's making a terrible noise. It's making a visual effect, but it's only hitting me 2 per second. So that's definitely a really cool way to kind of create some panic. And as soon as you leave the volume, you're fine. So let's end the game. Return back to island. Well, that's fun.
Yeah, there's a spawn point down there under the water.
Oh, that's what it is.
Not sure how that got there, but it's definitely causing a ruckus.
That's my bad copy paste. That'll be a fun one. Can you see it?
I don't know where it was. It's so murky down here. I can't find it.
That's awesome. All right. So what we're gonna do is we've been through most of those settings, and we haven't talked about the trigger yet. But what we can do is kind of come back and maybe we'll see what Gatlin's working on. Let me return to lobby. And so basically you get 4 hours per session. And this session I started apparently 4 hours ago or so. And juice was running out. So a little note to self.
Wait for it.
We could have also been on the outskirts. The location you are matters too. Kind of when you get hit by the circle. You might need to ready up if you can.
There we go. Yep, I'm sorry. I wasn't muted this time. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. So we'll get back into our world. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then you'll have basically everything you need to kind of use all the things you've learned to build a cool obstacle course using your events and your collision skills. Yep. There it is. There it is. I'm going to delete it. Oh, shoot. Really?
There we go. I got it.
Though. Wow, it was way down there. That's cool.
That was a really awkward place.
Kind of a fun strat right there. Okay, so are you start you in immediate panic underwater? Are you ready to show us your thing, or you got time for me to show one more thing?
Yeah, go show it. Yeah.
Okay, so one more thing I want to show. This is the last thing in the student guide and the teacher guide is your trigger device. And so what we can do, which is fun. Everybody likes explosions and things like that. So we'll take the explosive device and I'll equip that. And over here you can look at triggers and you can see, wow, lots of cool triggers. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab this trigger here. And I will actually click place now on that one. So you can see here I have my grid snap on. I might change it to something a little more free. And there it is. I can pick it up now and actually resize it. So the cool thing about these triggers is you can scale them and change their size. You could make it wider. So you can make it fill a complete doorway. You can also rotate it, flip it, however you want to use it. Even though it's all out of disproportion, you can make sure that it fits the space that you want. So like if I were to put a wall here and then do that edit that I did last time, maybe there's something like that where it just kind of makes you want to run through there. Here we go. The C, the pull towards you trick. Okay, there's our spawn pad. There's our trigger. So what we can do here is have this explosive device. I'm going to place the explosive device from my phone. I'm going to pull out the phone, and you can see it's in slot 1, so I press 1. And then I can place this down on the ground right here. And similar thing, right? The trigger triggers a signal that activates that explosive. So we'll do this on channel 10, we'll call it. So actually you can click on these signals here and you could say when triggered transmit on. You can change that to 10. You can also type in 10 if you're on keyboard mouse. You can come over here to the explosive and you could say explode when receiving from, and we can type 10. Okay. Now, and this trigger could also be made invisible. So again, the collision exists, but the actual mesh or the actual look of the object does not exist, but the collision is still there. So you could tell the collision is actually an overlay that's different from the actual device itself. So the collision and the look are two different things, which is why sometimes you get mad at games because you think that you saw it right, but it didn't. So we're going to run this real quick, and then we'll switch over to see Gatlin's after we hopefully make this explode. Hey, Gatlin.
Hi, I'm not in the water this time.
Hey, just go run through that tunnel. Just run through that tunnel. I dare you. There's no reason. Hey, I hope you had a blast. So that is how that works. Yes. Cool. So we've been through all of those things. Let's go see what Gatlin has in store for us.
Oh, it's not quite ready, but it should take half a second. So something that I had found quite a while ago was that you can take these vents.
Yep.
On their side. Whoops. Come here. Give me the thing I need. Here we go. Set it there. Another one there.
Gotcha. Using them for
there.
Speed boost.
And then turn them invisible, and you can go right through them because it turns their collision off.
Wow.
These all invisible. I don't have too many obstacles, but I've definitely got ramps and jumps and things because it's silly that way.
Nice one.
You're going to grab your spawn pads. Grab one here. Oops. bring him over here. Let's see here. So
are we gonna have a race?
We're gonna sure. I mean, I'm down. There and one there. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's see how this works. This will be entertaining.
Okay, cool. You like entertaining? All right,
place
so
your,
I'm
place your bets now.
Place your bets, everybody.
Big money, big money, big money.
All right, I see you right there.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna run into this and woohoo! Oh, wow, I made it.
That's a true bit. Yeah.
How you doing? Yeah.
So it's a work in progress for sure, but
nice. Wow, you built this pretty quick though. You just started. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. Oh,
out of bounds.
Yeah, that's what you get for bragging. Oh gosh. Oh, look at this. He's gone. He's
the
gone.
pass on the outside.
He's gone. Oh no. That's why you don't celebrate too early, kids.
Never play against the maker.
That's right. Nice. Awesome. All right. It's about that time. It's about
Good
that
game.
time.
Good game.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I hope that was helpful. That was our Hour of Code activity on collisions and events. And you get to build a fun obstacle course using all those skills that you made and kind of looking at all of these devices in a new light. You're looking at these things with new information and new intention. That'll make you a better programmer, problem solver, creator, all those good things. What do you think?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, stay tuned for the next one. So any Hour of Code activities you want to walk through, you can go ahead and search online, check our YouTube channel. Also check where you're finding these things. They'll be posted on various Epic Games resources. And check for some of our other activities and things in Unreal Engine. We do Hours of Code in Unreal Engine as well. So if you want to mess with robots or build video games or do other cool activities, look for those resources as well. And we will see everybody in the next one. Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Adios.